They got to start thinking more comprehensively about what's going on upstream and downstream of them and not being so parochial. And I'm serious about that because I'm born and raised here. I said, we need people to become partners. We need people to kind of open up their eyes to where some of these other impacts that are heard in downstream areas are coming from upstream areas that haven't been addressed yet. And we've identified a lot of those. But certain people they don't want to work with somebody else. No, they're not even, what do you mean? Why would you talk about something up in Rice Township or, up on 309 through Solomon's Gap? What does that have anything to do with Wilkes-Barre? So when steam locomotives were coming up out of the valley, out of the grade, they were used coal. So as they got 3/4 of the way up the mountain, up the plain, they dumped off all their cinders, all their ash, the coal ash. Where did it go? Solomon's Creek, right in the gap. If you walk that gap, there are monstrous, concretions of coal ash that every time it rains, that coal ash erodes, makes its way down the plain, down through Solomon's Gap, because it's very steep, very high gradient until you get to the valley floor around Ashley in Hanover Township, and then everything starts to settle out and deposit.
It still hits, I don't miss it, it's go, 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 like a go, go flow, and I'm almost done, and I told you so, when I throw these flows, like it's Rochambeau, and I ain't too close, it's Joe Smoke goes, and I'm on my grind, that is all the time, I do not do breaks, that's right, I stay in dry, and look, I'm back with a little bit of that, a little more cash than it came in with, ready that cat is out that bag, but I still ask you, the boy got skills, I don't need her, I don't need him, I don't need help with me, I got this, I can sing songs, I can spit raps, and I can do both, even do this, word.
This episode is brought to you by Anthracite Pallet Solutions. Need reliable, durable pallets to keep your business moving? At Anthracite Pallet Solutions, we specialize in new and used 48x40 wooden pallets. Whether you're shipping, storing, or stacking, we offer high-quality pallets that keep your operations running smoothly. With our own fleet of trucks and trailers, we deliver on time, every time. And if warehouse space is a concern, our drop trailer services have you covered. From custom orders to large-scale deliveries, we're here to meet your every need with top-notch customer service and unbeatable prices. We're currently shipping within 2 hours of Scranton, Pennsylvania, including Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and Maryland. Call us today at 570-606-9206 or inquire online at anthracitepallet.com and let us handle your pallet solutions. Anthracite Pallet Solutions, built to last. Designed to move. This episode is brought to you by Sweat Tent, the pioneers of the portable wood-burning sauna. Did you know that using the sauna 3 to 4 times per week could reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease by up to 50% and make you 60% less likely to experience Alzheimer's disease? That's why I've been a big fan of the sauna for years. But having to go to a crowded gym to do it isn't ideal. And all the at-home options are bulky and expensive. That's why I only use the Sweat Tent for my sauna needs. It's the most storable and affordable wood-burning sauna on the market. It not only takes minutes to set up, but it can reach 200 degrees Fahrenheit in 30 minutes or less. So whether you're enjoying it yourself in your backyard, with friends, or in need of a reliable sauna on the go, Sweat Tent is your best choice for the most portable, storable, and enjoyable outdoor sauna experience. All On the Stacks listeners will receive $100 off when you use code OTS. Visit sweattent.com today to get $100 off your purchase with code OTS at checkout. Again, that's sweattent.com to get $100 off with code OTS. Sweat Tent, helping you fire up your home wellness routine. This episode is brought to you by FitAF. If you haven't already noticed, I live and breathe entrepreneurship. Whether it's launching new ventures, attending pitch meetings, or mentoring budding entrepreneurs, my schedule is jam-packed. And that's where FitAF steps in. Their menu changes weekly, offering a variety of chef-inspired meals designed by nutrition experts using only the best quality ingredients, keeping me fueled and focused. Their vast selection of meals has you covered for all types of dietary restrictions and diet plans, including keto, paleo, vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, and more. As an On the Stacks listener, enjoy our exclusive offer. Get 20% off your first order of 7 meals or more when you use code OTS at checkout at fitafnutrition.com. Again, that's code OTS for 20% off your first order of 7 meals or more at fitafnutrition.com. Healthy meals and seamless nutrition, keeping entrepreneurs at the top of their game.
21 by 22, I was here starting this organization, but had previously been with another nonprofit that was at Wilkes University. The Northeast Regional Office of the Pennsylvania Environmental Council is a statewide organization. They've been around since the 70s. And a gentleman that was there, that was the director. He was kind of like a naturalist guy, Russ Greiner Johnson, and he was from the area too. And he ran the Bear Creek camp. Right across from the house up
what was his name?
Russ Johnson.
Okay.
Russ Greiner Johnson. And this was, back in the, let's say, mid-'90s. But I had done some work with him as a volunteer when I was in high school at Myers, where I would come up and there would be kids with students with disabilities and stuff that would go on nature hikes and stuff, and I'd get out of school and be able to go up with him, spend a few hours, take kids on trails that were up there, and we would do a little trail building and some other exercises and things like that, but mostly like tree identification and macro and bugs and stuff like that in the streams. And so I did that with him as a volunteer in high school, and then got involved with like a river sojourn that they used to do on the Susquehanna River back then, and they still do them. They call these Susquehanna River sojourns, and Delaware River, Lehigh River. They all have these sort of sojourns where you can take canoe trips for several days on the river. And they were planning one for the North Branch here of the Susquehanna, and then they were doing one over on the Delaware. And I just started like, I want to volunteer, try and get on one of those trips, So we would meet in the floor, first the basement of Boscov's, and grab something to eat, but do the planning for that.
How old were you?
Oh, man, at that time in high school, I was like, 18, 19?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's way back.
You're still a kid. But I mean, like you were that interested that early.
Environmentally, yeah. I just kind of knew, I think, what I was going to be doing or something along those lines as I got a lot older. But I was like, yeah, I'm sort of cued right in on this area here and sort of the mining impacts and, what can be done about it. And I thought that was going to be a direction I might go in, So anything I could do to get involved locally with some things that were going on, volunteerism, wise, I took advantage of that and opportunities to help out with, the media and flyers and getting people involved. And so we did a lot of planning. And then I got to take part in a river sojourn on a canoe that I grew up in the city there in Wilkes-Barre. I've never been on a canoe, let alone I've been down to the river carp fishing and stuff when they had carp ponds back in the late 70s, early 80s. That's what we used to do, but hadn't been on a big river system, let alone in a kayak or a canoe. So it was a fun experience to do in high school at that time. But I stayed in touch with Russ, and as soon as I got out of school and I came back from Penn State, he was like, I need a program manager, somebody to do some stuff on greenways and trails. And we were starting to do some connections here along the valley with the Back Mountain Trail in the Back Mountain with Judy Rimple and Anthracite Scenic Trails Association. And then Peck was like doing stuff along the river here. And there was a levee trail system that was starting to be built out. Then you had the Delaware and Lehigh National Heritage Corridor going out from Ashley and up the plains and then over to Mountaintop and Whitehaven, out that area. So all these like trail connections, and sort of that got me in that first realm of like meeting up with all the different nonprofits and kind of building partnerships when we started doing trail work. And but Russ said, Bobby, you just came back from Penn State. You got all this experience in mining and reclamation, but we don't have any kind of organization here. But there are some partners like Bernie McGurl, who became a longtime mentor of mine up at the Lackawanna River Conservation Association, and others that were a part of some other efforts looking at the rivers and focusing on the mining impacts. But there was nobody in the region doing it. So we built this, like, why don't we run a conference and bring everybody together, and built this coalition here in the East, because there had been one in Western Pennsylvania working in the bituminous region in a number of counties called the Western Pennsylvania Coalition for Abandoned Mine Reclamation. And they were around since like the early 80s. And I brought those guys out, and they helped us like sort of charter our membership at this conference. But I ended up pulling a conference together at the time when Congressman Paul Konjarsky was still in. We brought folks from the Office of Surface Mining, Reclamation Enforcement from D.C. here. So we had all the top politicals right down to our state reps and, local groups that were starting to do things. But we brought in conservation districts. We brought in a bunch of the cogeneration plant representatives and even the anthracite coal industry representatives who have been a partner with us from the very beginning to look at how do we reclaim a lot of these old abandoned mine sites that are post-1977 that just weren't getting too much attention, weren't getting a lot of funding. There wasn't a lot of funding coming this way. And they're like, let's start talking about how we could do that and build that coalition out. And so I did that sort of at Peck with some help from other nonprofits too. There was a Pocono Northeast Resource Conservation and Development Council. There was a number of other watershed groups that were from the region. And we call them watershed groups, but they're basically just community leaders that worked around the watersheds that were impacted by mining, and they were all over the anthracite region. They were up in north central Pennsylvania, like around the Loyalsock Creek, up in the Tioga River. We were down in Schuylkill County in the Schuylkill River Basin, over on the Lehigh River, here in the valley, Hazelton, Catawissa Creek, just a whole host of creeks that are impacted. And they needed to form some kind of groups if they were going to get money, or they were going to have to come through groups like ours that we ended up forming as a nonprofit. So things took off after that first conference in '96, and fast forward here, we're almost 30 years later. It's been 29 plus years, but we just finished our 26th annual conference last year with a record attendance of like 185 people in attendance, and we had like 30 exhibitors and sponsors. We sold out the Ramada Hotel down in State College, so we need a bigger venue now. But there's a lot of attention that's been brought forward because there's a lot of infrastructure funded and money coming to abandoned mine projects and economic development of those areas, not just backfilling a hole and planting trees or seeding it and grassing it and wait until it gets some vegetation and you walk away. Now it's about redeveloping the sites, and we see this, and we see a lot of this, and I mean, we're advocating for clean energy alternatives on a lot of those sites, like solar or geothermal use of the mine pools and the water underneath the ground or in the stripping pits that are flooded. But we also want to see like warehouse manufacturing in warehouses, that type of industry come in, not just your typical big box that we're seeing a lot of, but that's what the service industry right now, and that's what's happening along the major highway systems that we have. We're seeing a lot of those facilities being built on those mine lands, and they're creating lots of jobs. But could there be a mixed use in those areas as opposed to just the warehouses alone? I mean, now we're hearing about data centers, and we're hearing about the need for increased electrical usage. Well, how are you going to get that? And what are those data centers need electricity from somewhere? Right. So maybe solar is one of the ways to go. And so we've done some work on that recently in the last few years to advocate for solar development on mine lands as opposed to like agricultural and farmlands all the time. But there are reasons you do it on ag lands, and farmers want to do it because they need funding to keep their operations going too. But they can do some mixed use type of farming and agrovoltaics, they call it, with their livestock that they want to use on those areas too. But we're looking at the sites for utilizing the mine lands that are being reclaimed for solar development, whether it's community scale or grid scale, the large areas, but we lack connection to the grid in those areas. So you have to build that out. It's like, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? It's like, well, how many utility poles does it take to get to the site, and what's that cost? And that's a hurdle right now. While we don't have the legislation that is really kind of incentivizing or encouraging that type of development right now. So we everybody around us in other states have it, like they're going gangbusters. New York and New Jersey, Maryland, West Virginia, Virginia. Pennsylvania is a little behind.
Or a little lacking.
In terms of alternative energy production in that respect, in like.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think that there's a bottleneck in the market in terms of the gridlock or number of projects in the queue for the PJM market, which has to approve a lot of this stuff, that new projects coming on board, that excess capacity and how it's got to get there and how it's got to get distributed is a challenge for our region here. So that might be holding a lot of things up. And then also it's the companies that are coming in, they've got to negotiate with whoever owns the land. And in our area, and not all across Pennsylvania, but particularly in this region, a lot of large landholders are coal companies as well. So they own lands that they're either mining or have mined previously and reclaimed, or they have abandoned mine sites that they legally don't have to reclaim right away because they fall under this law from 1977 that says, I don't have to reclaim the site, I don't have to treat the water because I'm protected under that particular law. So a lot of people don't realize that that's the case. So we have to work in very close, have a good relationship with many of the coal operators in our region. And we do, because if we don't, we can't go out and sample, we can't monitor, we can't get flow, chemistry, access, and then discuss potential project opportunities for cleanup of those sites, or let other companies come in that we can help facilitate discussions and say, hey, you guys could go meet behind closed doors and do what you want to do for a 30 or 40-year lease for a solar site. We don't really care about that. We just want to see the site be best used for the post-reclamation, and it's going to create some jobs and maybe some economic development, but also give back a little to the community too. Have some community benefits where maybe they get a lower reduction in their distribution and transmission costs to their utilities that are coming into their house, knowing what our situation in this region with inflation and everything else, that if there's a reduction in some of the costs to people.
Yeah, it would greatly help.
Oh my God!
Talk about all the rising costs anymore. I mean, it's everywhere with everything.
Yeah, because they're going to get money off of the sale of the electricity back to the grid. So
right.
There's money to be made there.
Yeah, it'll come back. Yeah.
Right, but that's not what we're about. We're about protecting the community's interests first, but we can't do that when we don't own the land. We need to be a partner. We need to sort of develop positive relationships with these operators and any private landowner for that matter, and try and be a sort of liaison to these various programs that are out there that they could go after, and we could partner with them. And they could work with nonprofits or conservation districts and other agencies to do the reclamation work or the cleanup work. And that's what we've been really doing for the last almost 30 years, and doing it in a way that it's been very positive and it's not been very antagonistic. We don't take that approach. We're coalition builders, we're consensus builders. We're not, compare us to like a Greenpeace, but we're not like really extreme on one end or the other.
Yeah, you're not like putting a stop to, any type of
progress
and infrastructure and things, right?
No, and we're not a group that's just like anti-coal. We're not. This is our heritage. This is, what Pennsylvania was built on, and it's an industry that, while it's getting a lot smaller, we understand that things that are happening post 1977, those companies have to meet regulations and standards in their reclamation and their projects that they're working on. So we know that they're going back into old sites, they're remining old seams of coal, but when they come out, those areas would not otherwise be reclaimed if they didn't go a little deeper to get that coal. But when they come out, they have to reclaim it, and that's eliminated a lot of the hazards, and that's eliminated in a lot of places where water is getting in and becoming a part of the mine pools that we call them underground, and contributing to the mine water pollution problems that we have that are legacy, pollution problems from pre-77 when there weren't any laws. And there's a lot of things happening pre-77, and you could trace it all the way back to the wars in World War II. What were we told to do? Mine more coal. So the government said that, so these companies did that. And prior to the 70s, I'm not letting them off the hook entirely, but there weren't very many environmental regulations in place prior to the Clean Water Act and, Rachel Carson and Silent Spring. That stuff happened mid-70s and on, and then things got a little tighter with Safe Drinking Water Act and Surface Mining Control Reclamation Act and CERCLA, all these different Superfund type acts and laws that started coming into play a little bit later. But from the mining perspective, the blame can go around to a lot of folks. But, in terms of the land ownership, that's what we need to negotiate and have good open communications and be real transparent about projects, because that's what's going to make some of the ones that we want to see done successful. And any private company can make their money, any coal company can make their money, as long as we see that there's these downstream benefits to the community that we call community benefits, and want to put a plan in place to do that. And the way we do that is looking at the communities and the watersheds and the impacts, and what can we do to make those areas improved and improve their quality of life. So that's some of our role in being that sort of middle of the fence kind of organization and voice, to work with our conservation districts and our partners in the watershed community that are not like out there with staff attorneys and lawyers.
Yeah, and trying to shut everything down.
Yeah,
it seems like you're helping both sides.
Yeah. We don't have the money to kind of go after anybody. We're struggling just to continue to always find
doing
money
what
just
you're
to
doing.
fund ourselves, to do this
Yeah.
work. So that's a challenge in a lot of the coalfield communities that we have, because we're in environmental justice areas. We're in areas that are already underserved and underrepresented, and don't get all the money that we probably need to do a lot of the work that we're doing. But with the foundation support that we do have locally from groups like Dave Pedri and the Luzerne Foundation, and up at the Scranton Area Foundation and others, they've helped us do projects over the years that kind of gets the word out, and we do small things with schools and students and STEM type programs, to make sure we're reaching the kids, and then maybe through the kids we're reaching their parents to be a part of something bigger, But in terms of the large projects, there's not we're not in Philadelphia, we're not in Pittsburgh, or there's not the Heinz Foundation or the Pew Charitable Trust. These are very large foundations. Environment is something that's just more competitive in nature in terms of all the other funds that need to go out to social services and health and education and, the poverty and things that we really support all the other efforts that are going on through the foundations. And, we do find our niche in developing certain types of programs, but for these large projects that have to be done that are either water treatment or they're land reclamation projects, we're talking multi-million dollars. We're talking having money that has to be set up in trust funds for long-term operation and maintenance of the kinds of discharges that we're looking at that are feeding the river and polluting them in various tributaries to both the Susquehanna or the Lehigh or the Schuylkill. So these areas that are impacted the most, it's going to take quite a bit of money to do that. But that's what we're sort of about. That's what we've been doing for a few decades now, and doing it pretty well, but doing it on I'll call it shoestring budgets, because you're literally juggling grants every other day. You're on one other project that you're trying to, make sure you're doing something in this field for this project, or I'm monitoring over here and for this project, or I'm sampling with our partners all the way down in Shamokin every month at 29 different locations.
It's crazy,
you're literally hiking and going around.
I mean, you just can't. Where'd you come from today? Where were you before this?
Yeah, I just I just came from State Game Lands 260 down in outside of Shikshini, and it's an area it's a beautiful state game lands that the Game Commission sort of manages off a little Shikshini Valley Road, and we have access to get in there, and we are looking at old waste coal piles, old mine openings that haven't been inventoried yet, that may need to be sealed off for public health and safety because they're real close to some of the trails down there. You find lots of artifact remnant structures from what was down there called the East Stackhouse Colliery and the Salem Coal Company that back in the 1920s, we have maps that are showing 1929 when some of the coal veins were mined out in those areas up on the flanks of the mountain that you look at them now. I mean, you got to be a billy goat for one, and I don't know how I'm doing it, but my AmeriCorps, she kind of laughs at me all the time. She's Morgan Romanowski. She's from up in the outside of Carbondale area, but she graduated from Wilkes and had volunteered with me, and she came out with me today, and one of my other coworkers, Steve, he did get to venture into the billy goat territory that we did a few weeks ago, but we scale the size of the mountains. It's not no trail. It's a deer path usually. And she's like, why are you going up here? I'm like, well, see that right there? There's no water in that, but that's a tributary to the river, or it's a tributary to another stream. If they don't realize that there's this connection between waterways that while they're not flowing today, we get a rainstorm, it's going to flow. And we would go up along the sides of the mountain, find some of these different openings, and here you have rail sidings coming out that are like little light rails and old mine cars that have just literally rusted away in the leaf litter. And that's what we find, and we're documenting that. We're taking locations of them. We're doing water quality testing, and there's not much flow right now, but if we came back in the spring of next year, yeah, I'm sure it's probably going to be up there. And in those areas that I've known historically, when you're down in that area, one can come across from Mackinac-Aqua, the 239 bridge, and head back north up along Route 11 and look where the Five Mountains sign is. That's down there that most people are pretty familiar with. There's a little garden area there that the folks did down there. It looks really great. But right next to it is, you would normally see a waterfall. And I'm like, I've always thought, where is that waterfall coming from? It's up there by the coal that's been mined out on top of the mountain, but is it a mine discharge or is it the water coming down from what we know now as Patty Run? Well, it's a combination now because we went up and we found it. There's a pipe up there. There's water coming out of the pipe from the old mine from the colliery that used to feed the coal breaker down along Route 11 because the foundation is just tucked away right off the shoulder of Route 11 as you head a little bit south out of that area of Shikshini. And we started documenting where those locations were, and we'll come back to them, but we're putting them all together in sort of an inventory where that will be then used to determine, okay, if we're going to monitor this, what do we need? We need water bottles. We need to come out here monthly. I need to put staff time into doing that hiking to come up here, get these samples, find real good access to get into those locations, and then see if it's really, how much of an impact is it having on the streams, and is there enough of land around that could be reclaimed in those areas where we're finding all the waste coal piles, and can it be safely done? So we're pulling a lot of that information together. We're partnering with the Conservation District, like I said, one of our organizations that's up in Shavertown, and they're a watershed specialist, and they're submitting a grant to the state that has money for this type of reclamation and also monitoring and treatment. So we're going to put in this early stage plan for let's monitor it and let's get the samples that we need. Let's get flow and chemistry and kind of assess how much material is up there if it was to be moved and reclaimed. Where's it going to go? Is it going to fill stripping pits, or can it be taken to cogeneration plants if it has a high enough value of BTU for heat energy that we can transport it out of there and take it to, well, the closest cogen plants right now are down in Jim Thorpe in Northampton, so they're pretty far away. And we're already doing that with a project over here on the back road in Sawyersville, so there's a lot of great stuff happening over there. As an aside, that's another project doing land reclamation, but converting land to some of the land is being donated back to Sawyersville Borough for a recreational park and greenway kind of component through their Parks and Rec Commission, and we help to facilitate that with our partner Keystone Reclamation Fuels Management that's moving the material out and taking it down to the cogen plants, and then they're reclaiming the site in the first phase. And then Pani Enterprises donated 7 acres of the land to the borough for a park and community area that they're going to build out as to what they decide they want it to be. But it's an area that up there, for instance, had 30 feet of waste coal material that you couldn't see the other side of town, and it's only a block away along Tripp Street and Church Street over there. And now you can look right across the whole 7 acres, and it's down 30 feet of material. Over 500,000 cubic yards of material has been taken out of the site, and that's just the first phase. And it was a $12 million project.
Wow.
We received a $4 million grant right through COVID. This whole time it's probably 5 years now or 6 years it's going on, but take a year out for COVID. We couldn't really run and operate and do anything, but we've been moving material, reclaiming the site, taking the waste coal out, letting electricity be generated and put back on the grid, keeping some people working, and also keeping the operators and managers down at the cogen plants still in operation so that they didn't sort of fall by the wayside, because we only have a few left.
Yeah.
So
you're a vault of knowledge.
Well, I've said this since I was a kid.
I hope all this is being. I mean, obviously, I've looked on your website a lot. I'm sure there's obviously a lot of documents on there. But I'm sure there's even more. And I hope it's all. I know it all is.
It's all written down.
But this is a lot of stuff, man.
Yeah.
There's a lot that when you and I first started messaging back and forth, and I started really looking into more of this of my own just to prepare for today. I'm like, man, we could do like 100 episodes on all this stuff. I mean, there is so much information and so many different projects that you're working on. It's unbelievable.
There is. And you got to understand, I've been hiking these mountains since I was a little kid.
Crazy.
This is almost like my second time around in many of the locations. Well, I might have fished them when I was younger and, went out with a lot of my friends and just rode our bikes to different places. These are things that I was... And
it was different back then, too. No GPS, no nothing.
You weren't even supposed to come home until, the lights come on, like you always hear.
Yeah.
But, we grew up in Wilkes-Barre in the Heights and in the Oak Harbor Terrace and the Boulevard townhomes right now. But that's where I grew up. But all my friends would be like, let's get on our bikes. And we're talking 1980. So it could be 8 and 10 years old. You're on a bike, and a mountain bike or a BMX bike, a trick bike, and we're heading out for the day. It's like, where are we going? Well, we were going to Harvey's Lake. We were going up to Huntsville Creek to go swimming.
You'd ride your bike all the way up there?
You could ride 309 in 1980.
Really?
And not get hit.
Wow.
But that was a place we would go, hit over Huntsville Road, go up to the waterfalls at the 5 Points, and we'd go swimming. That was something we used to do as
That was like your
kids.
day.
That was it, if you went that way. And then on our way over, what we would do is go through people's yards that had pear trees and apple trees, and all right. I mean, okay, granted, we took some pears and apple trees illegally. I admit it. I'm sorry for anybody on the west side.
That's missing a couple pears.
Yeah. But, there's been dog chases and things like that, too. So, in fairness, it's like life or death.
Yeah.
So we would do that, going in that direction. But if on the east side here of the valley, we would go up to Wilkes-Barre Township. We would go up to Laurel Run mine fire, if you've heard of that. It was hot and heavy back then. And you could go up there and hike the rail trails that were up there, the old railroad grades that were along that area that are now being converted into trails by the North Branch Land Trust, and possibly being connected up with some of the DCNR's Bureau of Forestry property. And that area, we would jump across I call them fumaroles for lack of a better term, but they were just burning coal banks, but they were fissures. And you would jump across a 3-foot section from one side to the other while it was still smoking. And that was like, oh, you're cool, man. You know.
Yeah.
And you're breathing in methane and gases from the mines. But we weren't there very long.
All good, yeah.
You go pick some blueberries and you're good. You
Right,
know?
yeah.
So
yeah.
those are kind of the adventures that we used to have as kids. And at that time, I was literally the token naturalist for all my friends. You know, he's the smart kid. He's the one that
what made you like interested? Obviously, you know, you were exploring as a kid, you know, riding your bike and doing all these, you know, adventures that you just said with your friends. But like as you're out and, you know, your friends are saying, oh, he's the adventurous, he's, you know, the outdoors guy. Like what was it that you really took to nature?
When I was really young, I spent a lot of time in the it was the Wyoming Valley Geological and Historical Society next door to the Osterhout Library. And I spent so much time down there because I'm just like a bibliotech. You know, I'm always constantly reading. You know, I loved history of the area. I went into that museum and I saw the Indian sort of Native American artifacts and the displays. And there was a coal mine display that was down in the basement that used to play songs for coal miners down in the mines. And it got me hooked. And then I had an elderly woman that was like a grandmother that I never had that used to tell me about like fossils and where the fossil pits were in the area, and she would say, "Here's a book on fossils. Go find them." You know.
And would you go out and?
Oh my God! I'd go and I'd bring them back, and she made me cookies or banana bread, and we would all go to her house and just sit there and just eat, and she would help me identify different types of fossils that I know like the back of my hand right now. You know.
Yeah, that's cool.
So that was those experiences as a kid in doing that. Really just led me to like finding out more about, okay, there's these streams here, you know, they're running orange, they stink, you know, South Wilkes-Barre stunk to high heaven when you used to go down to San Sui.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
You know. Is that like finally? Does it not stink anymore?
No, it still stinks.
Oh, it still
stinks.
Yeah, it still stinks.
Yeah. Now, but I never knew why. We always thought then it was like a sewer issue.
Yeah.
Just like where's the sewer plant right here? The sewer plant's few blocks down Fellows.
Yeah, like why does it smell so bad? You know, so far away, right?
And I didn't never
come to find out.
Yeah. Oh, it's hydrogen sulfide gas. It's being gassed off from some of the largest boreholes in the southern part of the valley. You know, they're coming up behind Leonard's Auto Tags.
Yeah.
And, you know, we'd be at McDonald's all the time, and you could smell that stuff when the air wafts a certain direction. You know, but even if you go down to the discharge,
is that unsafe?
No, it's not. It's because the water is just aerated and coming up out of the mines from underground. In the conditions that it is underground, the oxygen is in the water. So think of it as like bubbling out. And so when it bubbles out and it aerates and adds oxygen to the water, that's what is allowing all the iron to deposit in the streams.
Is that what turns it the orange?
That's what turns it the orange. Yeah. That's the iron hydroxide. You know, and when we dry it, it's called iron oxide. But that coats the bottom of the streams for miles. But every time it's going over a little ripple or a riffle in a run, you know, there's different features in a stream, it oxygenates the water, which we want oxygen in the water to have fish and bugs because that's what they need.
Sure, yeah.
But you also want it when you want to treat certain types of mine drainage because you have so much iron in the water that's dissolved coming out of the mines underneath the ground that the only way you're going to remove the iron is to aerate it. And some treatment systems are call for aeration of this, and you need electricity, like the one that's down along Dundee Road in Hanover Township that everybody might see if they ever go 29 heading to Nanticoke over by Loomis Park. So that area over there is owned and operated by the Earth Conservancy, and it's a treatment system that has an aeration system that we call the Hillbilly Hot Tub because it's tied to the electrical grid there, but it feeds two blowers, and the blowers constantly add oxygen to the water from a mine discharge there called the Ascom borehole, and that's coming up right into Nanticoke Creek, and there's not very much room there to treat, but we're using whatever space is available, and they've built a system there, and we monitor it for them and give them the results and the data on a monthly basis so that they understand what they might need to turn a blower off or turn a blower on based on the flows that are coming out of the boreholes tied to the underground mines. And so there's a lot that goes on with those type of systems that you have to kind of monitor them quite a bit. And that's why we talk about this need for long-term operation and maintenance of funding that needs to be out there for systems like this if they're going to be built to take care of treating that water long-term. So, yeah, it's just, that kind of interest at a very young age. I always chuckle because I've gone to those places once, and I tell all my staff, because I'm always cross-training everybody when we're out, and they're taking all the knowledge that I know, and I'm giving it to them. So God forbid I retire, somebody's going to have it all, or if it's not in a technical report that we've co-authored or we've written with a lot of the grants, because what we're doing now really is, and I find it very fulfilling, is that I'm out there again with staff, and we're surveying and assessing the conditions of the current field conditions and what the streams look like now, even post mining, and
Yeah, what have you seen over the years? I mean, you've been doing this for like 30 years. I mean, I feel like you've been doing it your entire, since the day you were born, basically. But I mean, like, what have you seen over the years? Like, what changes have you seen?
Well, we've come
good or bad.
Yeah, no, we've come a real long way. I mean, this valley here. I mean, I was born and raised here in the Wyoming Valley. I'm one of the flood babies here. Born on
right?
the day of the flood. Yes. And I haven't seen the Agnes documentary yet.
Oh, you haven't?
I haven't gotten to go to the feature.
Oh my gosh!
Tony Brooks,
I'm in it.
You're in it too?
I'm in it.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, Tony Brooks and I are very good friends.
Yeah.
And Alan is too.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
But I got
great guys.
I ordered the CD, and I'm like, I don't even have a CD player, so I.
How do you watch it?
I literally have it at home, and I haven't been able to watch it yet because I don't have an old laptop or something to play it. So
an old disc drive, right?
Yeah. So not that I don't need to relive it, but I definitely would like to see the production itself.
It was very, very well done, and it's very, very eye opening to really see all of it. So I mean, especially for me, I mean, obviously, I'll say like your generation, my parents' generation, like obviously, you were born, on that day, but I mean, as kids, like I, heard the stories, from my parents and grandparents and everything, and to be able to see all that footage, everything all come together in one film was wild.
Yeah, and if you've never heard of or smelled flood mud, I mean, you could smell it.
Mm-hmm.
If it was on an old book or something in a library, it was from the flood.
Yeah,
it's just a distinct smell, and it's even a distinct smell that you can smell down in the floodplains of the Susquehanna that it never goes away. It's there. So it's kind of interesting. But that time, I mean, 72 even. Just think of 43 feet of water coming up here in the valley, but the underground mines was already flooded by then. And 77 was when the laws were coming around to like deal with the water pollution and stuff like that.
Yeah, so this is the abandoned mine drainage, right?
Yes.
I kind of want to get into that. Is this kind of leading into?
Yeah, it does. It does because that water underground that is in areas here, particularly if we just use the Wyoming Valley as an example, because I'm not really sure the audience reach that you have, it's multiple counties or not, but let's focus on the northern coal fields here, just in the Wyoming Valley. And there are between 17 and 23 veins of coal, anthracite coal, that have been mined beneath our feet here. And they go down upwards of 1,500 feet below the surface. So I always tell people, think of a mine shaft as an elevator. Just go to Boscov's. It has 4 floors. Okay, and it's not that tall. But now go down 1,500 feet in an elevator until you get to the bottom of the mine, which is the bottom of the valley that we call a syncline. And it's like a slide. It slides down and then it goes back up on the other side of the valley. So we have coal underneath the ground. The deepest coal veins are what we see right now on the flanks of the valley. If you look across the river into Larksville or into Plymouth Township up on Avondale, and if you look up here in Wilkes-Barre Township along where the recycling place is there, Allen Scrap Industry, and work your way up Wilkes-Barre Township, just here in the valley, those flanks that you see where sometimes you'll see like, oh, it's that black, sort of like a black back of a dinosaur or something, like a brontosaurus, but it's all the bottom rock of the shale and the outcroppings of the deepest veins of coal. We've taken the coal from that area already, but let that coal go down underneath the ground and into these slides along either side of the valley from 81 and Route 11 and underneath the Susquehanna River and areas that run north and south from, well, here in the valley, let's just say Pittston to Shikshini, pretty much the same thing. All those veins are been mined, and very few have been left. Now, there are ways to leave some coal, and they do. Room and pillar method of mining is what it was called, where you have long gangways where you can have a rail and bring the coal out, and then you left rooms that, pillars that would keep the roof support up.
Yeah, hold it up.
Or keep water on another side of the mine, because each mine and mine owner had their own colliery, it was called. And think of an imaginary line from the surface extending down beneath the ground. That's their boundaries, that they were mining. But if one bought the other one up, they could remove the barriers, and that was called robbing the pillars. And so when they did that, that allowed water and or the coal to be mined and stripped underneath the ground from these other areas, leaving very little roof support. And so what do you have? You end up having problems with like the Knox mine disaster in 1959, where get a little too close and you're close to the river and it comes through on you.
Now, why'd they get so close?
Greed? Sure, it was greed. And sometimes they're contract miners, and you get paid by the ton. And if you want to top it off, they call it topping off the box cars. You got to get paid a little bit more, and that probably had something to do with it. But there was a whole, RICO, case that went on for what happened up there with the coal companies, and so that was very interesting to see. Dave Brocka's film. If I don't know if you know Dave and those guys that put together the Knox mine disaster, we helped them do some of the mine mapping for that in the pathways that some of the miners had tried to escape. And we traced that route and traced the way the water was filling up as it came in up there at Knox and filled the mine voids in that area. And we found their escape route as it was described. But we could follow the maps and actually see which way that they ran and which area they went to before they got to the main shaft to be able to be rescued. And a gentleman by the name of Bill Hasty, who was like a 101-year-old miner, Purple Heart, he was a wealth of knowledge. You think I know a lot about mining and history in the valley. Bill Hasty could give you every lineage of every family that was in this region.
Is he still alive?
No, he passed away just a few short years ago.
Oh, man.
But he was up at the VA hospital, and he was a part of this anthracite living history group, and he's just like an amateur, historian of anthracite coal and mining, but he worked up there and helped with the rescue and along that. And he's featured in the film. But his daughter, Megan Hasty, and I are very good friends, and he was friends with Bob Walensky, who did a lot of work and was a professor here, adjunct professor at King's, that did a lot of work on and books on Avondale mine disaster, labor disputes and different things, and then of course Knox mine disaster. So but Dave's film did an amazing sort of recollection of that. But when we're talking about the water, when the coal companies were mining, what are you going to do? You're going to mine and pump water out, and they were doing that, and they had pumps and they had all kinds of machinery that used to just constantly be taking water out of the mines so that they can mine lower elevations. And so you either had a pump with electricity and you were pumping water, you weren't treating it at that time, and you're just discharging it to the stream.
Where was it going?
Into the stream.
Just right into whatever was there.
Waste coal banks, old conveyance channels. Sometimes it was going to flumes, concrete flumes, wooden flumes. They used to do that too. We have old books that show wooden flumes that if you were a skateboarder, it would be in heaven, because they were like half pipes that were above the coal mining areas because they wanted to keep some of the water clean. I don't know how they did that, but why they did that, but they were trying to use it to maybe wash the coal and maybe clean it and keep some of it from getting into the mines so that they didn't have to pump and treat. If today you were to go in after post-77 to even consider going after deeper coal, you have to pump and treat. Nobody wants to do that. No coal company wants to dig more coal in this area. And that's why you don't see any coal mining going on, because nobody's going to pay for the cost of what it is to treat that water and pump it with the electricity costs. And then you have to make that water better than the receiving stream that it's going into. And maybe that's why still a lot of our streams aren't cleaned up just yet. But it's the cost, it's the volume of water, it's the lack of land area. It may need to be piped and pumped in certain areas to get it treated. But we're still working on a lot of that. But the fact that they were pumping the water down to keep it in the dry is what they called it, so that they can keep going lower and lower. But what happens when you shut the pumps off? If you have a bathtub at home, we tell the kids, if I put a plug in the bathtub and I turn the water on, what's going to happen? It's going to flood. It's going to overflow. Yeah, that's exactly what happens in the mines. That's what the mine pools are, that we call them, for lack of a better term. It's very complex geology. It's very complex hydrogeology, which is just the movement of the water within the rock and the mined out areas. upstream and downstream and across the valley. And where does it going to flow out of? It becomes the weak points, or it could be the mine shafts, or it could be the mine boreholes that were intentionally drilled. Even after Agnes, some of these were drilled because the basements would have been flooded in some instances. So they were monitoring a lot of this stuff even prior to 72. And we have the old maps that showed that. And you saw this increase in water after coal companies started to belly up and declare bankruptcy in the late 60s and the early 70s. And, the Huber shut down in 76 down in Ashley there. So up until the mid 70s, there was still some coal mining going deep underground. But after 77, man, nobody wanted to kind of touch that. I think my opinion is that you didn't want to pump and treat the water because it was groundwater at that point underneath the river because it all filled up. And what was happening is we were seeing, if the pumps aren't running and the pools are starting to fill up, then what you have is water coming off the mountainsides that were going into the old workings that haven't been, the old stripping pits that hadn't been reclaimed yet at that time. Now we see a lot of that done. So, fast forward this 30, 40 years later, we're seeing so much of this reclamation go on here in the region. You don't hardly recognize those features anymore, and that's a good thing. So the stripping pits have been filled, been backfilled. There's been reconnections of stream channels. We're seeing that right now down in Nanaco Creek. We're working with the Earth Conservancy, who just got $17.5 million to do a stream restoration on just 2 tributaries of the Nanaco Creek watershed on the backside of town behind Warrior Run and areas just below Watinsky Villa off of Slope Street and Holly Street. And it's going to connect up to a stream that's going to come across Front Street in the Hanover section, Clark's Cross, and then Middle Road before it reconnects up on Dundee Road where the Ascom treatment system is. But by the time the water gets restored from the surface to the surface instead of going underground, we might be able to eliminate some of the flow coming out of the borehole discharge there and reduce the area that needs to be treated for all the iron-laden water that's coming out of that particular borehole from that pool. The water that's coming in right now is clean water that is like, it's a trout fishery upstream of that particular area, and we can go there and show people. We do this all the time with students and high school kids and young kids and colleges. Let's just stand right here and watch this clean water come off the mountain just above the coal measures, which there's a difference between the geology. It's called the Pottsville and the Llewellyn Formation. The Pottsville is all the hard sandstone that you see, glacial rock material that you can rock climb on and stuff on either side of the valley. And then the Llewellyn Formation is all the coal-bearing strata. So there's coal and there's shale and there's other rocks in between, some limestone, just some formations, and calcareous type shales, different types of rock, hard. But coal in between all the way down to that 1,500 feet, and we'll watch the water on the surface go down and just be completely lost in a whirlpool and drop into the mines because they mined underneath the streams for one when they weren't supposed to, just like they did on the Susquehanna. They had things called stop lines. And if you had a stop line on a map, that was to tell you, don't mine under here because the stream is above you.
Don't do that.
No, you're just going to bring it down through. And that's what they did. They would mine through the stop lines at multiple veins, and all that did is encourage fracturing of the upper bedrock and a loss of that water. So in trying to restore that water, that's clean water we're talking here. You're adding millions of gallons of water to these discharges that they're relatively clean because the pH that when we do the chemistry is like 6.2. That's not bad. It's got a lot of iron in it because there's a lot of pyritic material, and we call it the fool's gold. It's iron pyrite that's found in a lot of the geology underground that rubs and erodes off into the water and becomes dissolved. And then it discharges and becomes the iron oxide that we see, the iron hydroxide that we see in the streams once it reaches the surface and aerates, with the air and the water mix into the stream.
Yeah. So what are these boreholes? Can you explain those? So there's been boreholes, in various areas.
Yeah, there are boreholes all over the coal region. And particularly some of them were monitoring boreholes that they would put down so that they could know where the coal was. And
Is that what the purpose was?
well, there's different types of boreholes. There are boreholes that were relieving pressure of
Right, there's the
water.
pressure, yep. Mm-hmm.
Those things are like South Wilkes-Barre. The borehole down there is almost 42 inches in diameter. That's a big borehole. And it goes down about 250 feet into the mine workings. And it's cased down. They put casing on it. Lots of boreholes, just like a well for your drinking water, is cased into the mine, or not into the mines, but into the groundwater so that you pull the water up through it. And these ones happen to be very large to relieve that much pressure.
That's a lot of pressure.
Oh, yeah. So, and the head pressure is what the water is that comes off. You think about Old Faithful and a geyser. Well, these are like mini geysers, and they constantly are overflowing and bubbling with water that, if you're up close to it, kind of looks like a mushroom cloud of just clear water until it aerates, and you smell the hydrogen sulfide gas by the time you come up to it, and then that iron starts dropping out into the stream bottom as soon as that sort of chemical reaction takes place. That's what some of the boreholes are like. You got one of those in Old Forge too. You don't see the borehole because the borehole is still very large in diameter, same diameter, drilled through rock basically, that allowed water to come up into the shoulder left bank of the Lackawanna River. If I'm looking upstream, it'd be on the left bank above the Union Street Bridge. And they ended up putting it into a chamber. They call it like a dissipation chamber. And that dissipation chamber just allowed it to churn and aerate, kind of like a gigantic washing machine, basically. And it was just churning. And when it did that, that allowed more iron to drop out. And so what they did then was put it into a culvert system that is probably 600, 700 feet in length along the sort of the western shore of the riverbank, and then it discharges out. Why they thought putting it all the way out and down to just above the bridge, like they were going to hide it. You can't hide 65,000 gallons per minute of water with 5,000 tons of iron coming out of it per day. You just can't. And look on Google Maps or from Google Earth, and you will see the lower 3 miles of the Lackawanna just get blown up with iron oxide deposition for that lower 3 miles. And God, I love Coloruso's 2.0, but if I was on the back deck looking over, I'm looking at stream that looks as orange as my shirt the entire
I thought you wore that today to match the
this is for safety reasons. For safety, but so that's what happens up there. That's some of the boreholes are like that. Other boreholes were used for monitoring that we use them for, because we can get elevations to the mine pools underground, and we have a tape measure. We call it a beep tape. It's basically a tape measure. On the end, it has an electrode and a device that as soon as it hits the water, it'll beep, and it'll give us a long beep. And when it does that, I could stop, hold the tape, take a look at it. We already know the surface elevation of the road, because most of those boreholes that we're monitoring are in the middle of our streets and roads throughout Luzerne, Lackawanna, Schuylkill areas. And I'm actually doing, and we have done, a borehole awareness campaign for our local municipalities. We were just with the Luzerne County Township Supervisors. My colleague Morgan set up a display up there because I had to be somewhere else, but we put together a display to let them know that there are certain boreholes that townships and boroughs are paving over right now that are historic. These are ones that the state, for some reason, did not put them into the PA one call system. When you see it painted on the roads for gas,
so they know
water, but state didn't pay for that to be done with these particular boreholes.
So they had no idea.
They don't know what they are, so they just pave over them. And I'm like, dude, you're paving over our only access to the mine pools. Now, we could cut into those and open them back up again, but it costs more money.
Right,
I understand they're milling the roads and they're making improvements, but we're trying to now figure out a way that we can get some money to keep those boreholes open, because too many of them are getting closed over, and it's not giving us access that historically was being used by the state. They don't do the monitoring anymore. We're trying to do that. We've used them for the borehole and 3D mapping and modeling that we've done for the Luzerne and Lackawanna valleys historically, and there's like 43 boreholes. There might be 12 of them that are paved over, or we need to get access to them. We call it daylighted them, because if we could do that, their locations are on either side of the valley, and what they do is they give us the elevation adjustments that we see in the mine pools when we have, for lack of a better term, when there's climate change, and we get rain events and hurricanes and stuff like that. These things can fluctuate, and that causes it's related to flooding. Because
are you able to, like, when they fluctuate, like, is it any indication of possible flooding? Is it any indication of anything? Like, what do they tell you? Like, when you go look at these and do the testing and measure the levels, like what does it tell you?
It tells you the water is coming, and in the areas that we typically would test to get those elevations, some of them are up to the surface already, and that's not good.
Yeah, that sounds like a problem.
They're normally down lower. Kind of. I think of it like a straw. Put water in a straw. Will go up and down. If it's across an area in water. So in certain areas, there's a beach line. We call it. The beach line is like all the way out away from the river. And then there's other areas that are closer to the river. And we have in the Wyoming Valley something called ever hear of the Buried Valley? Mm-hmm. Okay, so the Buried Valley is really like alluvial deposits of sand, and it stretches out pretty much, I'll say, from East Northampton Street, if we just look at McDonald's over here in East Northampton, Cornerville, Carmen Terrace, and the Boulevard Townhomes, and go all the way over to here, I think right where we're at. We're not to the mountain yet, so kind of, I'm not sure how far we'd have to go back, but if we went back to like Larksville Mountain, or to the Rock Cut, in Luzerne, that area there underground
near Toby Creek area, which we'll get to in a minute. Yeah.
Toby Creek area. Go down to the old former Redner's Market, where Toby's Creek actually comes into the river, down below there by the junkyard by Valenti's, and underground that Buried Valley, is an area that water will just seek.
On the Stacks will be back in a flash after a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Elevation Wellness, NEPA's premier wellness center located on Mundy Street in Wilkes-Barre. From pro athletes to busy parents, Elevation Wellness is leading the conversation when it comes to bettering your health through integrative medicine. Founded by NEPA native Louis Helmecke, Elevation Wellness offers physician-formulated and guided treatments that are administered by registered nurses. To learn more about how you can experience the benefits of IV vitamin therapy, multivitamin booster shots, non-invasive aesthetics, or peptide, NAD, red light, and compression therapy, visit elevation-wellness.com or follow them on Instagram at Elevation Wellness NEPA. All On the Stacks listeners will receive 10% off their first purchase with code STACKS at checkout. Call 570-762-9400 or visit elevation-wellness.com to book your appointment today. Elevation Wellness, taking your health to new heights. This episode is brought to you by Burn, the fitness company behind the Today Show approved Burn Board. If I'm being honest, working out can be a real chore, especially as a new dad in desperate need of sleep and cardio. Burn is founded by NEPA native Jimmy T. Martin, and his Burn Board offers a low-impact core and cardio experience unlike anything I've done before. They have hundreds of on-demand workouts that are great for beginners, seasoned athletes, and out-of-shape podcast hosts who love supporting small businesses. My wife and I use it pretty frequently throughout the week, and it's honestly a great way to burn a ton of calories without burning a ton of cash. Not to mention, it's a great tool for skiers, runners, wrestlers, and hockey players. Jimmy is offering all On the Stacks listeners 15% off when they use the code STACKS15. Visit theburn.com today to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15 at checkout. Again, that's theburn, THEBRRN.com to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15. It's time to get on board today with Burn.
We drive the same roads you drive. We face the same danger you face. When you're involved in a car or a truck crash, it's personal because we live here and raise our families here. We're invested here.
To learn more, visit Angelo Law Offices online at angelolaw.com. And now we're back on the Stacks.
It's, coarse and level in that sand, sort of alluvial material. I compare it to a sponge. Just think of a sponge getting wet. And it
can only take so much water.
Yeah, so it's going to take so much, and it's going to fill up. It's going to soak it up, right? And so the mine pools are soaking up that water, and it's continuing to rise because where's the water coming from? All these stripping pits and areas underground that are being fed by mountain streams coming off the sides of the mountain that are being lost and obviously still flooding through the old channels on the surface. But a lot of water goes into pits and then goes into these mine workings and comes out as mine drainage. And so we see that water really elevate in some cases. And we did that in, I think, 2011 when we were out. We saw one borehole along Route 11 that jumped 30 feet. That's a lot. 30 feet in a borehole, and you try and estimate what that is across the valley or just in volume. It's billions. We're talking billions of gallons of water. And that's what we do have.
Billions.
Billions of gallons of water beneath our feet, because who's pumping? Nobody.
Right.
I don't know anybody actually pumping mines right now. Could you pump them down, some of them? You might be able to pump some of them down and eliminate discharges, but I don't know. It needs more study. That needs a lot more work to be looked at. And maybe, I'm going to say 10 or 12 years ago, when we really started doing the mine mapping efforts for the state, Commonwealth PA, they contracted through grants with us and my staff. We're small. We're only 4 full-time, 2 part-time, all grant funded, some foundation support, some professional services that we do for consultant firms and for even coal companies we've done in the past, but in cogens and other partners of ours that need our technical expertise. We are now, in the last 10 or 12 years, have put in literally 25 to 30,000 maps for this entire region.
That's a lot of maps.
That's a lot of maps.
That's a lot of mapping.
It's a lot of mapping. And I give a lot of credit to my staff for doing the nitty gritty and the hard, tedious work of, we scan them, we catalog them, we take lots of information off of each of the maps that they had to be trained on, realizing what the symbology was. None of them are mining engineers. I'm not a mining engineer, but I learned from one, and my background is in this, so I could read a map and tell you what it means, what's been mined out.
Plus, you rode your bike everywhere. You are the map.
Yes.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
It's a mental map that I've got, but I've taught them a lot of that. They know how to read them. They know how to interpret them. We're taking elevations off the maps because there's lots of survey points. No coal companies and mining engineers wanted to leave coal, so they surveyed everything. Pins were in the roof, and that's where, just go to the Lackawanna Coal Mine Tour, go to the Pioneer Tunnel, or go to the Lansford Number 9 mine. These are places that will give you that history of, how did they survey these things underground, and what's it really look like underground. And when you're in Lackawanna, you're up in the Dunmore 1 and 2 veins that are up on the flanks of the valley, but they go underneath the valley and come up even on the other side, mid-valley, and over along Route 6. So there are really extensive maps, and they detail a lot of information. And that's all being cataloged right now that we didn't have 10 or 12 years ago when we first started doing our mine pool mapping. If we take into consideration what we've done now after we do a lot of this geographic information system mapping, and we pull these attributes from the maps that give us the elevations, the thicknesses, actually gives us water levels on some of the old maps too. And we find out on the maps when was the last date that they mined. That helps us. And when you look at a map, it could be 10 or 12 feet long. That's one coal vein. It's a 1 to 400 scale, and we could read that, and then there'll be dates on the map that show the progress of the mine, and where they'll go out, and then they'll come back. And when they come back, the sort of geometry of a lot of the symbology on the maps changes, and these hashed lines or diagonal lines on the maps will tell you that means they've robbed it. So I wish I should have brought a map. And
That's right. I'm gonna pull that one up. Actually, it just made me think of it. The one I was talking about, the mine poles, right?
The mine pole model,
right?
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'll try to pull that up on the TV here, and then I could probably throw it up on the screen too for everyone to kind of see a little bit what we're talking about. Because I was watching this. I told you before we started that I was watching some of this, and it's.
Yeah, this is my colleague Mike Hewitt giving a little rundown, like a 5-minute rundown on it. I don't know what you want to do.
Let's see. I'll make this. See if I can find my mouse here.
Make the screen bigger.
Yeah. Where the heck did my mouse go? I'm really prepared here, Bobby.
No, take your time.
Let's see. Hang on. We got hang on one second here. we go. Maybe this will do it. There we go. Okay, here we go. We need a drum roll after this one, right?
Technology.
Yeah. All right. So, what are we looking at here? What is this?
Right now, that's a topographic map overlay of the Wyoming Valley, and there's a transparency of a number of the coal veins that are in the valley. So it'll probably show up on the left-hand side. Mike will have a list of the number of veins.
There we go. Yeah, I'll just kind of pause it maybe here, just so we can just kind of see the vastness of this.
Yeah, if you see on the left-hand side, see the number of veins that go 1 to 23. I had mentioned.
Yep.
And they each have a name on them. So
yeah, what are all the different colors?
The colors represent different coal veins.
Okay.
And so there's just a plethora of those, and they kind of, in this particular model, they rise and fall going up and down the valley and across the valley because they're in geologic terms, they're either in an anticline going up underground, or they're in a syncline and they're going down underground.
Okay.
So when we say ridge and valley, ridge is like the anticline, and then the valley is the syncline. So the river, Susquehanna River, runs right down through the middle of that, and that's the valley. And so these veins are underneath the ground. So think of them as underground ridges and valleys that we just can't see. Kind of like the Mariana Trench, basically.
Right.
And the ocean is what we have here in the valley underneath the ground that nobody just kind of hard to visualize and conceptualize.
Yeah. I think I probably watched this like 5 times today, like just trying to like understand it. Because I mean, honestly, I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
You know, you guys have all kinds of maps and interactive things on the website, and I went down a rabbit hole today.
Oh, it's easy.
It's
easy to get lost.
Yeah.
And there's like cross sections across the valley that we've taken information from of different maps. And there are places where it pinches. So you might be in the upper Lackawanna, and then it comes down into the Wyoming Valley. So
yeah, I just want to skip to just to kind of show, just so it shows the whole. Maybe this, and I'll just pause it. So this kind of shows like the whole. This shows it all, right? So where's this span from? Just to give everyone like watching and listening an idea of how much of an area is that?
Yeah, if you think about it,
this is like Jerriman.
All the way up in the north, there's the German slope. If you ever heard of Aylesworth Creek, it's an Army Corps flood protection area up there. There's an Aylesworth discharge, and German has an outfall called the German Outfall. It's an AMD discharge on the upper Lackawanna River. So everything up there in that area to the north is basically. That white outline on the end of the map is the coal measures.
Okay.
That's kind of like just a boundary line of where the coal measures are. Everything in between that is all the different coal veins. And you're just looking at it from a color view to show you the different veins, and it's not even the cross-sectional view. This is just an overview of up and down the valley, how much coal and how far and wide
it goes,
particular mine, the mine pools are. And the German mine pool is very isolated up there. See how it's kind of disconnected?
Yeah, it's just its own little island up there.
Yeah, it has its own discharge. It has a lot of water coming into the upper Lackawanna, but the good thing about it is it doesn't have a lot of acidity, doesn't have a lot of iron, doesn't have a lot of aluminum. It's just cold water. What do trout like?
Cold water.
Cold water.
Yeah.
And why is that upper Lackawanna the trout fishery that it is?
That's why.
German outfall.
Yeah.
For one, that's one of the secrets many people don't know about, but there are several other.
Everybody's going to take your fishing spot now.
Yeah, well, I'm not the only one. There's a bunch of my friends up there, Nido and Adam and a bunch of others that run the fishing outfitter shops up there that fish that area. Just great. 22-inch brown trout, easy up there. I don't know about the brooks. I haven't caught any brooks, but they're usually up in the headwaters. But in the river itself, the brown trouts are pretty prevalent in that area, and they're good fishing. And they love that cold water coming from German. And there are several other smaller discharges that are up in that Lackawanna Valley, upper Lackawanna, that feeds the river. But they're smaller discharges from the gravity slope and a few others that come in. Some got a little bit of iron. Some of them are behind like beaver dams, and so the iron is naturally being attenuated behind the beaver dams. We're not going to touch those. And it's still pumping out cold water because mine water is cold, and that's a good thing. That's like one of the best things it's got going for it is that it's cold water because it's groundwater. And in the wintertime, we still see all the discharges and know it's a mine discharge because there'll be snow everywhere else, but the mine water is, at that point, warmer than the outside air temperature and the snow around it. So we never have problems sampling in the winter because the water is actually warmer for us to sample. It's just trudging through the snow and snowpack.
You're freezing your ass off.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. But what you're seeing here is all these different areas that.
And this goes all the way down to where? Where is this? Is this go all the way down to like Wallenpaupack area?
No. This is all in the valley. So this is Lackawanna Valley in Forest City, which is above German. come down through Lackawanna Valley. It's through Scranton. You come down, see Old Forge borehole is in the middle there. These are naming a bunch of the different discharges. There's the Duryea Breach. There's one in Duryea, by just above the Coxton Railroad Bridge.
So in the blue here, I think I see Solomon's Creek.
Yeah,
right.
When you get down that far, you're now in the Wyoming Valley pool, because there's a separation from Old Forge and getting into the Wyoming Valley. So that big sort of fat, wider area is the mine pool for the Wyoming Valley from the Plainsville borehole, where you see a Plainsville outlet.
Yep.
That's just south of Amalia's greenhouse.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's the Price property that's right next door. And there's a huge 13-acre former sand and gravel pit loaded with iron, removing about 90% of the iron. But it goes out to the river and is very conspicuous, and you see it from an aerial, or if you're on the other side of the river in 40 Fort by the levee, just look across the river. You'll see the thing coming out, and it just bleeds iron oxide into the river at that point. And then you come down into the valley, and now you're at all these other borehole locations like Solomon's borehole. And then you're further down the valley, you're into Nanticoke.
Yeah, I see Honey Pot.
Yeah, Honey Pot's over by Weiss Market in Honey Pot along Access Road, where LCC parking lot is down there across from the bridge. And if you go to, I used to live in Nanticoke for a number of years. We just moved to the back mountain a few years ago. But everybody who shops at Weiss Market in Nanticoke, they're probably smelling like, what? There's no sewer around here. The sewer authority's like up the roads. Wyoming Sanitary Authority, they have a pump station around that area. But what are they smelling? They're smelling all this hydrogen sulfide gas that's coming out of the Susquehanna, the Honey Pot discharge that's right there along the access road from an old abandoned air shaft. And it smells it's releasing hydrogen sulfide gas.
Yeah.
So we smell that every time we used to go shopping there. I thought it was funny. But you go down further, Nanticoke, Newport Creek, there are other discharges there that you could see. The Mackinac Tunnel is all the way down in the valley, down valley in the Chickashinny area in Cunningham Township, where the sewer plant is, and it's actually the entrance to the Pinchot State Forest's Mackinac tract.
Oh, okay.
They got that property from Earth Conservancy through a donation. All that land down there, and Newport and Nanticoke Creek really have been just devastated by mine drainage, and there's seeps like Swiss cheese down there all over the place with mine drainage coming into those particular watersheds. And we've done a lot of assessment work on that. But what this map has really shown is that extent of where the mine pools are in these various coal veins beneath the ground for this valley. And like what'd you say? It's 400
Yeah. So in the video, it said 435 billion gallons of water in this area.
That's just in this northern field.
Right, just there.
Right, just in this.
Which is crazy.
Field. And I think we compared it to, just think of the size of Lake Wallenpaupack. 2 of those. You could fill 2 Lake Wallenpaupack.
That's crazy.
With this amount of water that's beneath our feet. And the good thing about it being down below until it comes to the surface is that when it's underground, those metals tend to be dissolved in the water, and they stay in solution, kind of. And the only way it's going to come out of solution is through aeration at the surface, or if they are deeper veins, they tend to be more acidic, and they have some aluminum because of just where they outcrop. They outcrop along other Pottsville Formation geology, which is sandstones and conglomerates and quartzites. These are the real hard rock that's hard to weather, but when they do erode, quartzite and sandstone is mostly silicates, aluminosilicates. And so you get a lot of aluminum in the water, and aluminum is very toxic at very low levels when it dissolves. But aluminum doesn't give you an orange precipitate or a red or yellow precipitate that when it falls.
So you don't really, it's not visible. You don't really know.
No, and it's at much lower pHs. So it'll be about 3.5, 4, 4.5. But until you can adjust the pH of that water to like a 5.5, then it'll drop out, and then it'll turn like a white, milky, grayish color. And we see that in some streams where it combines with other discharges that have higher pHs. Then we know that there's aluminum. Like Mill Creek, for instance, there's a discharge called the Packer discharge, and it's just up the road here, and it's in the Plains sort of area, Plains Township area, and the Packer discharge drains into what's called it's Gardner Creek, and Gardner Creek is a major tributary to Mill Creek. Mill Creek is the one that comes down from Mohegan Sun across from Jumper Road and comes down from the Votech in the back there. Beautiful, clean water. Trout streams up there. It's brown and brook. But when they come in combination where Mill Creek goes behind Mohegan Sun and down into Plains, it picks up Gardner Creek. And Gardner Creek brings in this aluminum discharge.
And then it's polluted, yeah.
It's gray. If you look at the water right now, it's going over the bedrock up in that area. It looks like the stream is like soapy.
I've always wondered,
gray,
like that, yeah.
No iron, all aluminum, and it kills that 9 miles of that creek from that point all the way to the river. So, from that point on, Mill Creek, forget the trout and stuff. They're not hanging out anywhere below that area. But as it makes its way through the rest of Mill Creek, through the other sections of Plains and down towards behind Hollenbach golf course, and then back out to where it also picks up Laurel Run down there right before the North Cross Valley. Then it's all Mill Creek and goes out to the Susquehanna. But that large stretch is, and it discharges right into the creek, right next to an active rail line. There's no room to even do any treatment right now, so it's been very difficult to kind of address that particular discharge. But it just goes to show you don't always have to have iron impacts, but in some areas you can have lower pH and aluminum as a major contributing factor to the quality of the water, and also not having fish or aquatic life in that remaining stretch. And that's not water being nobody's drinking that water. It's not a part of the public water supply, but it is a part of the quality of life of the people that live there and downstream. If they were ever to want to recreate and fish or swim,
what
are you going to do?
Yeah.
And nobody's swimming in these orange creeks except me, maybe, and have been for decades. And nothing's happened to me. I still got all 10 fingers.
I thought you were missing a couple now.
No, no. And I don't try and drink the water, but we tell kids don't drink the water. I give them jars and I show them, and I'm like, you know what V8 is? And they're like, yeah, I kind of know what V8 is. And I have a jar of my mine drainage in a V8 juice jar. And I'm like, you know what they call this? And they're like, no, what do they call that? And I'm like, okay, it's a dad joke, but it's like, it's B8. And they're like, well, why do you call it B8? Because I said, if you ever drink any of this water from any of these local streams, it'll be 8 hours before you get off the toilet.
That's a good one.
Yeah, there's some humor there, because it will give you give you the runs or something.
You'll be in trouble.
You'll be in trouble, so don't be drinking mine water.
Yeah.
The only thing I've heard from the miners that it is good for is if you have calluses, or you have calluses on your feet or something like that. The acid and the acidity in the water
will kind of eat that off.
Yeah. So while their hands were coarse and stuff, you want to get the dead skin off, just put it in the mine water. That was something it was good for.
Yeah.
So it's not going to make your fingers fall off or anything like that. But in aquatic environments, it's very toxic at low levels to fish and macrovertebrates. You won't get any of those populations to be in any kind of diverse nature and abundance in streams. And so we look at that when we do our water quality monitoring and our bug sampling or macrovertebrate sampling as a part of our assessment work, in addition to just doing chemistry and flow.
So I want to kind of go back to that sponge analogy that you gave earlier, because I think it's a really great analogy and a really great example to, especially if somebody's listening, watching, and doesn't just is trying to just doesn't understand anything. I think it kind of dumbs it down a bit, right? So like all this water that's under the valley here, under this the Wyoming Valley. Are there any dangers to how much water is under there, and does it play into like you said, like when heavy rainfalls or hurricane comes through, and then we have the boreholes, or you can check the levels and everything. What dangers are there, or could there be, or eventually? I mean, I guess what I'm getting at here is eventually all this water under here, is it increasing, and is it getting closer and closer to the surface? Because as we look at the example with Toby Creek and just any other subsidences that have been happening. Obviously the Toby Creek one, there was a bunch of other areas were kind of popping up after that.
Yeah. But those areas had previously popped up, so it wasn't the first time.
Right.
A lot of people didn't realize that, but
sure.
Some of them were actually borehole monitoring locations that
just kind of
are there. And one of them over in Swearsville, I think, or 44 area was an old borehole core that didn't have a cap on it.
And it just
flowed up to the
yeah.
surface, and then it went into a storm drain system. And I talked to the gentleman that works at the one business that was along that street, and he said, "Oh yeah, every time it rains, the river comes up, and this area here ends up discharging because it's just a crack in the road because people are backing out of their business, and it's a soft spot, and all they do is pave it with, they'll put some blacktop or macadam down on it, and they know when the water comes up, it's going down to the storm drain." And so I even looked back at Google Maps. You could go through Google Maps and do a slide on it for history, over the years. And that same location was showing up every so many years with a stain of just iron or something go into the storm drain. And then it goes down and then discharges somewhere. I don't know where the storm drain outlets all go to, but I'm sure they go to the river at some point. So that one location was something that is not. It's not the first time it happened, so that wasn't just
the one
in Toby's Creek. When Toby's Creek, when that happened, that was one of them. Then there was another one where it was near the baseball field, and it might have been an old air vent or something that surfaced and water was coming up in that area. And again, when the river rises, so do the boreholes, the water in the boreholes, depending on where their location is. And the one that was for instance, in Kirby Park, it's called the Woodward borehole. It's one of our monitoring boreholes. And we have pictures of all these and as a part of our borehole awareness campaign, but it's kind of right on the corner of the fence where the baseball field is, and across is the football field there. You know what I'm talking about? Right at the intersection. And it's we call it a double plate. There's two plates. It's a diamond plate. You can't see it because it's under dirt and it's under leaves and leaf litter and stuff like that. And we can pop the plate. And when you pop the plate, there's a borehole in there. And it goes down and it's into the mine pool area. And that will discharge orange iron water when it comes to the surface, and has, if you Google an article from maybe 10 or 12 years ago, the Luzerne County Transportation Authority, which is right down the road, they had just put in a new sidewalk right there, and they put a new our sort of landscape area in the front wall, retaining wall. Well, the borehole came up, and water came down the road, and people were just driving by and splashing the iron. And the iron was just splashing over right onto the sidewalk, right onto their new retaining wall. Brand new. And I forget the guy's name, Strowish or something. He used to be the executive director back at that time. And complaining about what's going on here. Well, it was just the mine water coming up in that area, and it surcharged. And so it went along the road. But now they have storm drains there that I think it goes. I don't know the storm drain system very well, but I'm sure the Wyoming Valley Sanitary does. And it goes might capture it in the storm drain and it discharges somewhere. But it's only periodic. It doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah.
But it's one of the monitoring locations that we would historically, when we receive funding, and some years we got funding to constantly be monitoring these on a monthly basis. And we would go out if there was a storm event, because we want to capture a high flow. You want to capture, right now we're in low flow. So very low flow conditions. If the streams are in low flow, the mine pool is pretty low too. And think of it as a living lung. I mean, that thing right there is a water-filled lung. And it floats up and down like when we breathe. But the breathing that we do in terms of the way the water is rising and falling has everything to do with how much rainfall we're going to get and what kind of conditions there is in how much water is being lost into those mines and how much water we can restore to the surface and keep it out of the mines from adding more water to it. Because when you do that, if the water continues to fill up, just like when it rains, if our groundwater gets saturated and our backyards get saturated with water, where does the water have to go? It don't have anywhere to go. Goes into the stream, and there's no recharge, we call it. There's no way for that water to percolate into the soil because the soil is wet. It's saturated. It's totally saturated. So it just runs over the land, goes into the stream. You got more flooding. Now you got issues because your streams are bank full, we call it, when they're reached the top of their banks, and then they're spilling over. If we didn't have a levee system here in the valley, the water would be all the way out on East Northampton
We'd be in big trouble.
And we'd be flooded. We'd be underwater. Just like without the levee, that's where we'd be. And believe it or not, without the levees in a natural state and condition, if we looked historically back at the Susquehanna River, it's meandered and changed course like you wouldn't believe. And every river system does that. And they create these braids and they create these channels and they deposit sediment, and they may run up against some hard rock material and then change its course, or some structure, or a tree falls and turns it another direction. So that's what happens.
It's unbelievable how powerful water is.
Oh my God.
It can't be.
Oh, it could move. It moves rocks. I mean, we've lost monitoring stations that we put in the creeks a few years ago because they rolled boulders that we didn't think that they were going to go anywhere.
You didn't think it would move it, and sure enough.
Yeah, when Hurricane Ivan or something, I forget Ivan Lee, the one that just came in September just a few years ago, it was really bad in August, between August and September. We lost like 10 temperature sensors that we had that were like, stuck to rocks, and they were tied in with a PVC pipe, and they were just hobo sensors to get temperatures that we were trying to gather for drought conditions in the watersheds. And we went back to the roads were washed out, the bridges were washed out, the rocks where we had GPS location and where they were gone. We're like, we lost them. Yeah, I got to find another grant. I didn't have backup, hobo sensors, and so we lost a bunch of them. We told the granting agency, like, we did not expect hurricane conditions to come through. We had them in appropriate locations, but that amount of water,
just took
the
them
power
out.
of water just took them, and they're gone. And I couldn't find them. Even if we had Bluetooth wireless, which we did, we couldn't find them. They were gone. So chalk that one up to like, I don't know where else to put these things, but you don't put them on even big rocks that you think are going to stay. They won't stay.
Yeah. So what are you working on right now? Do you have any big projects that you're currently working on, or something coming up?
Let's see.
I know you probably got a lot of things going on.
Yeah, what are we doing right now? Well, right now, like I said, we're doing a lot of assessment work down there at the southern end of the valley. A watershed assessment is what we call it. And then what we do is make recommendations after we take flow and chemistry of any discharges we might find. We are also surveying bridges and pipes for what we call aquatic passage. And I get volunteers trained in doing that. Anybody can help do that. And they can learn about, how does water appropriately pass through different pipes and bridges and culverts, and why do bridges and culverts wash out, and why do we have erosion upstream and downstream of these areas, and big scour pools and others, and why are they collapsing? We learn how to assess those and take measurements on them and find out if they're actually in alignment with the streams. And if they're not in alignment, they're out of alignment and they're skewed. And that can cause problems. It causes like stream banks downstream of those pipes and bridges to become areas where they get a lot of undercut and the banks, and they kind of drop sediment loads, and then they cause erosion problems.
Then you got a lot of problems.
Now you got more money you're going to be putting in because somebody decided that it might have been they didn't want to spend enough money on the appropriate length and size of the pipe, that they took a shortcut on because of the distance they have to cross is like the shortest distance, between 2 points is a straight line, right? But in these cases, you want to align it with the stream channels, and stream channels aren't straight.
Right. So it costs more money because it's further distance.
A little bit of a pipe that's going to be a little longer, but it's going to save you in the end if you just get a bigger pipe. And honestly, we don't even like the pipes more so when they're on like earthen roads and bridges and stuff like that in forested areas or headwater areas. We'd rather open box culvert bridges that keep the stream bottom intact, and you don't have to worry about anything else. Just know that it has to be wide enough for a bank full event for a flood to come through, and you size the bridge appropriately. And a lot of DCNR state parks and areas are doing that now, and they have a lot of those areas starting to be converted, and you'll see some really great bridges being put in on state park lands and stuff like that. And I'm hoping the Game Commission will do the same down there in 260. There's only a few culverts down there, but we're looking at those. But we're going to be in the municipalities looking at them too, and giving the municipalities an opportunity to say, hey, you might want to replace these, and there are funding opportunities out there to do that. We'll help you get it. But what our assessment plan will do is make recommendations for those to happen. And that goes for private landowners too. Some private landowners have bridges and culverts on their property, but they're having flooding problems and they're wondering why. And I bet you 9 out of 10 times if I took a look at them, the pipes are underlined, they're undersized, they're not meeting. Someone's going to put a small 18-inch pipe, and if I look upstream and I see a stream that's 12 feet wide, it's not going through an 18-inch pipe. It's a fire hose that's coming out of the other end, and if it backs up at the pipe, then you've got flooding behind it. So these these are issues why we have today, even with a lot of the old infrastructure from the mining days and all the old keystone bridges and arches that are over the old railroad corridors that we see up and down the valley on either side. They become pinch points. So we either have to do something about removing the pinch points if they're abandoned and open up those areas and put in open box bridges and culverts that will allow the passage of water. And not only does it allow the passage of water for storm events and flood flows, it allows the passage of fish, and it allows
wildlife
corridors and the aquatic macroinvertebrates that would repopulate those stream corridors. It does that too, and that's what we're doing kind of a lot of the work for that we do out there. And that's all part of like watershed assessment work that we do and doing conservation planning and very holistic, very comprehensive, very watershed based. We do everything on watersheds. We don't do anything on political boundaries, even though we got to deal with politics, and we're always working with our legislators. We're working with their staffers. We work with local municipalities and road departments especially, and trying to key them in on some of the things that we're doing out there, and what the reports that we develop are really for their good.
Yeah, is there anything they can do better for you? How can they help you?
Yeah, don't pave over our boreholes.
Yeah, number one. Yeah, right.
And we're going to keep reaching out to them to do that. I'm a planning commissioner at my local township here in Kingston Township, and for several years as vice chair. I was chairman of my planning commission down here in Plymouth Township, just another one of many hats I've worn over the years. But doing that kind of planning on a comprehensive level, people that are in those volunteer positions, these are all volunteer positions mostly. If you're not a supervisor, it's been elected or something. They got to start thinking more comprehensively about what's going on upstream and downstream of them, and not being so parochial. And I'm serious about that, because I'm born and raised here. I said we need people to become partners. We need people to kind of open up their eyes to where some of these other impacts that are heard in downstream areas are coming from upstream areas that haven't been addressed yet. And we've identified a lot of those. But certain people don't want to work with
they're not paying
somebody
attention.
else. No, they're not even. What do you mean? Why would you talk about something up in Rice Township or up on 309 through Solomon's Gap? What does that have anything to do with Wilkes-Barre?
Because it flows down.
I'm like, they don't know the history of that area of Solomon's Gap, and that's the Solomon Creek headwaters all the way up there by the fire company, until you get up over by the pizza place, and was it not King's, but Three Guys up there on 309. Once you get up out of the Gap, okay, now you're in another watershed. People don't understand the watersheds yet. We try to educate them on where those boundaries are. You're up in the Wapalpin. You're Big Wap up there where you're probably at. But when you start coming down 309, you're in the Gap, Dogtown, and those areas up there, as they come down 309, on the left-hand side is the Ashley Plain.
Yeah.
What went up the Ashley Plain to bring the coal out of the valley to take it to the Delaware and Lehigh and take it through Whitehaven along 437? The Ashley Plain did. Steam locomotives did. So when steam locomotives were coming up out of the valley, out of the grade, they used coal. So as they got 3/4 of the way up the mountain, up the plain, they dumped off all their cinders, all their ash, the coal ash. Where did it go? Solomon's Creek, right in the Gap. If you walk that gap, there are monstrous, concretions of coal ash that every time it rains, that coal ash erodes, makes its way down the plain, down through Solomon's Gap, because it's very steep, very high gradient, until you get to the valley floor around Ashley in Hanover Township, and then everything starts to settle out and deposit. So years ago, I was in the paper with an article where I looked at some right on Division Street and South Main Street below Hanover Village. That area, we take a lot of kids right there because it's an interface between some bedrock and a loosened stretch of stream on Solomon's Creek there, but it's relatively clean because it's above the boreholes. But in that area, there are sand and gravel bars, and all the sand and gravel is coal ash. I'm like, well, where did coal ash come from? Solomon's Gap.
Yeah.
That's Fairview Township. It's outside of the city of Wilkes-Barre. That's a flood-in issue. That's a problem with not having enough area in the stream because all the sediment has aggraded and deposited into the stream channel from there through the Iron Triangle and the Brookside section all the way down through South Wilkes-Barre over there. And that's why they have
makes sense.
All the gates and everything, and they got to go in, and they're constantly taking out material. So they're going to continue to keep doing that until
they fix
somebody goes up
the
there
main problem,
and does a reclamation project in the Gap and removes the cinder piles. If they remove the cinder piles, guarantee you they won't have a problem with flooding and deposition of all that material that has been historically sitting up there for decades. And they don't
So where
they
is
need
this
to
to let's say address this problem? Like who do we go to? Who do you go to? Like who is it a state rep? Is it a municipality? Is it
Well, I think
where would you go? Like who would you need to talk to?
First, you need to identify who the landowner is up there.
Okay.
And that plane right now could be a railroad company. I think it might be the railroad company, and they're often difficult to work with.
I'm sure.
It's because of their right-of-ways and stuff like that. Otherwise, the rail trail would have gone through that area by now, and it hasn't. And I know Earth Conservancy has tried. I know other groups have tried. So there's a section up there, and it might be included in that section. So there needs to be something worked out there, and it might have to be higher level than just the township officials that are up there. And I believe that, I want to say that's Fairview Township, but it's Fairview or Rice. It's right on the fringe there as you're coming up to the top of the hill. But it's on the right-hand side. That little tunnel road you see is on the left that cuts underneath.
Yep.
That's still a part of Solomon's Creek right there.
Okay.
But this is downstream of that area.
Yeah, right,
and
right.
When you hike the plain, you can't miss all these coal ash boulders that are in the creek. And there's a few hundred tires up there too that have been illegally dumped on the other side. But it's another story. But that's it's not very accessible right now, other than coming up through the plain. And if it was, you get equipment in there and you do a reclamation project and you go after funding from the state, which has money for abandoned mine reclamation. It's still a part of abandoned mine reclamation, I think, or it's a removal of remnant coal material. It's waste coal, but it's like a burned out mine fire almost. But it's really just the locomotives dumped off all their cinders from the steam locomotive into the creek. That was the best thing they could do, going up the grade until they got it fired up to continue up over the mountain. So that's a legacy issue that needs to be dealt with, but it's one that it's not something that Wilkes-Barre can solve on its own. And I've talked to former mayors.
So we're talking multiple people that all need to kind of come together and put their heads together and say, hey, we need to fix this together. This isn't a my problem or your problem. It's an everybody problem.
And it's a watershed approach that has to be taken. And I kind of talk a lot to state agencies and federal agencies about in these areas that we live and work in. Lots of projects are going on at various levels of government from various funding sources. Yet hardly any of them will commit to put in the funding that is being used together so that we don't have to come up with what we call matching funds. Like, why do we have to come up with matching funds for projects when I got another multi-million-dollar project going on right here in the same watershed that is doing infrastructure while we're down here trying to do this, and nobody's talking to one another, and they can't count it. They can't count it with each other so that we don't have to come up with other money. That's our problem. You can't bleed blood out of a rock when we're in impoverished areas that don't have the resources to give you this sort of cash match all the time. But if there are other grants coming in from other resources and other agencies and grants for infrastructure, stormwater improvements, reclamation projects, stream restoration, we ought to be able to match those from a watershed perspective. And teaching people about watersheds is a whole other thing that we do. And we mostly do that with the elementary kids and the high school kids and, college students too. But community groups, the watershed groups that we work with are doing that. I mean, they define their group's name usually by the watersheds they're working in, down in Hazleton, Friends of the Nescopec. They're talking the Nescopec Creek watershed. It's got Class A trout fisheries at the headwaters by Honey Hole Road and areas that are where the state park is at Nescopec State Park. And then you come all the way down to Drums, and you're at the Jettle Mine Tunnel, probably the single largest mine discharge that drains pretty much all of the Hazleton area in one mine tunnel loaded with aluminum and iron, not just aluminum. So it's got bigger impacts than we can imagine for the lower portions of the Drums area and in Cunningham Township and then out to the river with iron and aluminum problems, but somehow manages to become a kayaker's dream because of the amount of flow and volume of water coming out of there. It's got aluminum and iron in it. We don't care. We're waiting to see what the levels are. We're throwing a kayak.
So we can go kayaking.
They put in at the 93 bridge and they're gone.
Yeah.
But so there's this recreational component, too, but imagine if the water was cleaned up and the added value of recreation, the added value of fishing, just the added value of clean water, which is what we're all trying to get at. And that's sort of what my staff and our regional board and I are really focused on in the end. The end goal is so that those future generations. It's not going to be mine. It could be my grandkids,
Sure.
and my daughters, and maybe my future sons' kids. When they have them, they'll have something even better to be in than what I had to grow up with. But I've grown up with it. I've done something about it. I'm still doing something about it, and we've seen a lot come a long way, and we've had our hands in a lot of work. And I know I have.
Yeah, I'm impressed, man.
No, I'm really happy to see where things have gone, and that's just from the environmental standpoint. But we still have a long way to go, and we're still doing some really interesting, innovative work that is outside the box. We need funded for it, man. We just, we want the state and the feds to realize that in our coalfield communities we lack capacity. And probably not the only one. A lot of our nonprofits around here would tell you the same thing. No matter what service sector they're in, do they have the people? You got to fund the people. And if you don't fund the people, you're not getting the projects. So what do we?
Yeah, you got to pay the people doing the work.
What are we doing here? Yeah, and the value and the knowledge and the experience and the passion that we all have to do the work to make our communities improved, and we work with everybody to try and bring them into the fray. That's what we do. I think that's what all of us want to do. Why do you want to be set against something that's so positive? Like it's polluted water. It's legacy pollution. We can point fingers all we want at coal companies and other people and other industries, but if we can't get them who are trying to bring people and jobs and other economies to our region, we got to ask them for something too. They can't just be the beneficiary and do things to the land like they've done before. We won't let that happen again. I know I won't. I'm always going to be on the side of our communities. And I think people that we work with, everybody knows that. I don't care if I'm in Shamokin, if I'm in Pottsville, if I'm in Hazleton, if I'm up in Scranton. Once they know the kind of work that we've been doing, and since we've been doing it so long, and a lot of the legislators know it too. They're like, these guys are the real deal. They know what they're doing. They eat it, they sleep it, and they can tell you it. If you give them the time, we could do way more.
Yeah, you could do a lot.
Yeah, but we just we need resources, and they often want data, and I'm like, well, I can't give you.
I don't have the data.
I don't have the equipment.
Right.
I don't have the monitoring in place. You want stuff to be done for a year. You're trying.
What comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah. So I said, you give me the money to install the devices.
We'll get the data.
And get the data. We'll give it to you.
Give us more money, and then we'll fix it.
Then we'll make a decision on what's best going forward. Because if you're making decisions on not having enough data, or you're using historic data that is not relevant to today, you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah, it's a disservice.
It's going to be very costly, and it's not going to help. So we were like, we'll do it the right way. We know where they got to go. We know where the places are. We know all the locations, and you've got to do flow and chemistry. You need people to do that. You can't just have one person doing it. It's a safety issue. You got to have people out in the field with you. So God forbid, nobody gets hurt. Nobody gets swept downstream. Nobody falls in a hole. We're putting our lives on the line, but people don't realize that, we're out there. I can run into a mine hole that could drop, but we have mapping and we have technology that allows us to know where that is. And we developed it. The state has their own, but it's nowhere near as detailed and in depth and accurate as what we have. And so that's advantageous to all of the communities that we work with, and they need our help, or they wouldn't be calling us to say, can you come to Shamokin 2 days a week and monitor these 29 discharges, and locations, upstream, downstream, the 9 discharges, various flows, hiking over the hills, to get out the locations with, carabiners and rope, some cases, if there isn't a trail to get to them, or you're wading across a 3-foot, depth creek that's moving, and you got to rope off and, kind of do some things like that.
You're a rare breed, man.
I'm not the only one. I mean, there's my other staff are doing it just as well, but I am, the face executive of the organization, but I don't do it alone. I got field staff that are doing that. They're called GIS, sort of watershed outreach, and there's environmental educators, working with me part-time, and they do the sort of IT and nerdy GIS stuff that I just know enough to be dangerous. But I'm trained in that as well because, we all came up from the same path, and I try to stay up to speed on that stuff. For lack of professional development, just look at my resume and on LinkedIn, and you'll see it's long, like it's current. It's there's things that are happening out there that we need to know about, and I'm making sure I know about it, and maybe others don't feel that way. And I'm not your traditional executive director where I'm going to come in here in a suit and tie and just sit here and talk to you like that.
And bullshit, yeah.
Right. No,
Yeah.
I'm like, I go out with my staff and we're in the
And
field.
we do the work.
We do the work, and yeah, there's this level. It's not so much a level playing field, but they know that I'm not sitting around on my ass. It's just in the office in an air-conditioned room. It's not what we do.
Yeah,
it's not what I do.
You're actually making progress.
Yeah, I've never been that way, and they know that, and maybe that's I don't know. I don't consider it a weakness. I consider it to be very. A proactive approach, and this is how you build relationships. It's people.
Absolutely.
I don't want to text people. I don't want to just send messages all the time, or I want to be in front of somebody. If I'm going to clean up a creek or I'm going to do a tire removal project, I want 25, 30 folks around me that are willing to sling tires in the rain and get them out of stripping pits and take care of that problem once and for all that was there for 40, 50 years. When you do that and you know that you've just cleaned up something that's been historic that nobody else wanted to touch with a 10-foot pole. And you went out and we found the grant money and we got the partners together and guys and gals that want to come out and they want to become volunteers with us. Come on board. Come on down, because we got plenty of those types of things happening too.
You got me all fired up here.
Well,
you got me all fired up, Bobby. In a good way. Good way. I mean, it's motivating, man. And I think like I said, like I feel like you're a rare breed. Obviously, it sounds like you got a great team and you have a lot of people around you that are helping you. But
we do.
But yeah, I mean, there's always room for improvement, and there's always room for as you said, obviously, money's a big part of it. And if you guys can get the resources, I mean, I think you absolutely deserve it. And I'd love to see you guys get more funding and get more resources, get more people involved. And if there's anything I can do to help you guys,
well, you already are. I mean, just getting on this program, I think.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have you back on too. I hopefully after this, maybe we can get some people's attention with this, and maybe you guys can get some more funding. And I'd love to see some projects happen. Maybe I'll get involved. Who knows, man?
Come on out. You can come out on a tour. I'll get you certified in aquatic passage if you want to become a volunteer. Do some of those culverts with us.
It's impressive, man. Like I said, I mean, like the amount of knowledge that you have, it's like I said, I don't know anybody else that has, and then that's that's part of the reason why I'm having you on, is because you have so much knowledge and you've done so much. I mean, it's like unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't know where it all goes. I just know it's up there.
Well, you're putting it to work. You're putting it to work.
Yeah,
so
we are, and I do. I like to share that with people. Someone that in this region and throughout the anthracite region in north central part of the state, but even it has statewide and has national implications. I mean, I get invited to go to conferences in other states. I get invited to appear before Congress and to give hearings, and I've done that. Have really great relationships with Congressman Cartwright, Congressman Muser, Senator Casey, Senator Fetterman. Through many number of years, I've been a constant through a number of the sort of political folks that have come and gone, and some that are still around, and they've always depended on, EPCAMR's expertise and our ability to build these types of partnerships and to, facilitate the right discussions and groups and getting them together to do good work. And it's always been, on the level, and it's something that we take great pride in building those types of relationships, and they are people relationships. You're not going to get anywhere without the people to do the work with you. The blood, sweat, tears, and just the gatherings. It's kind of funny that a lot of the work that we do, even when we did stuff just quickly, like down in Centralia, it took us 8 years to clean up Centralia. I've been monitoring Centralia since I was an intern for the state back in the 90s here in Wilkes-Barre, and monitoring the mine fire in various locations down there. But about 10 or 12 years ago, we said, this place needs to be cleaned up. It's trashed. There was tires down there, thousands of tires. There was trash everywhere. There was spray cans all over the highway, and COVID hit. And they trashed the place again. Everybody came out of the woodwork. They went down there, and somebody got life-flighted out of there. There was accidents. The coal company said, no more. We're going to shut down the road. I'm going to put it into a game cooperative with the Game Commission, make it be public accessible, but I'm backfilling the whole road. And he did. 650 some odd dump truck loads of dirt covered the whole highway. That was it. But before that, April 21, and a few years before, we coordinated cleanups. I coordinated a lot of efforts to get the money to get dumpsters down there, get people down there. We had off-road vehicle groups, and I had plenty of volunteers, 125 people on average every year to come down there. I bought them T-shirts, and we had cookouts at the Centralia Borough Building. The 7 remaining families that are there, 5 out of the 7 were partners in our cleanups, and we know them very well. I do. They've known me since I was an intern 30 years ago. And it was just great to put a finishing touch on it by saying, before 2021, we cleaned up the whole town, of all the trash. And in April of 21, we had another grant. We said, well, let's do some beautification instead of cleanups anymore. What are we going to do? So we got a grant. We planted like 150 apple trees. There's like heirloom apple trees already in Centralia. The mine fire was only on the one side of town. It wasn't on in the entire town. We planted all these trees. They've taken off. We gave another 150 away to people down there.
Maybe you could take a couple and give them back to the people that you borrowed from back in the day.
How about that? Yeah. Well, I planted those trees in, for my sins, my earlier sins.
Go, right?
So it did come
you
around.
Replaced it and then some.
Yeah. So I'm feeding feeding people and I'm feeding the animals down there as well. But that, when we culminated that event in April of 21, just a few years ago, I thought, wow, this was something. All Centralia was known for was Graffiti Highway and the mystery and the mine fire, and it's still burning. Slowly but surely, it's still moving. It's not out, but we participated in a documentary too. A former board member of ours, Joe Sapienza, did, called Centralia's Lost Town. It's great. It's out there to be viewed. Gives you a lot of good history on the backgrounds of that, and interviews us on some of our cleanup efforts. But that's what we do. And so you get 125 people around you, and you're having cookouts, and you're just like a backyard grilling, and you're cleaning up, tossing trash, you're picking tires and all kinds of things, household waste out of bags, and nobody complains, nobody bitches at all. They're just like, we're here for the day, man. Or their former residents are like, we want to do this. This is not right. This should not happen in our community. And I'm like, you're right. So let's do
something about it. Yeah,
we're going to get it done. And someone had to step up and take the lead on that. And we did. And they trusted me. They're like, oh, you're not a guy coming here that's like going to stand on the side.
Yeah, you're not a guy that just talks.
Yeah, be a supervisor or something like that. So no, man, we get the job.
You're a doer.
Yeah,
you're a doer, and I
appreciate
that. I love people that are doers. I don't like people that are talkers. And
no.
I mean, you're a talker, obviously.
I am a talker.
But you back it up.
I do.
You back it up. You back it up by doing, and that's something that I greatly appreciate in people. And I'm grateful that we finally were connected and made this happen today.
Yeah, it's just great.
We obviously we connected a while back. There might have been some comments on Facebook and stuff. And finally, like I said, I think your message is in my spam folder, and I finally found you. Whatever.
Man, he's like giving me the boot. Man.
Yeah, I'm like, oh shit, I'm like, I'm so sorry, Bobby. I don't know how. Am
I gonna have to reach out to his mom and dad?
Right, seriously, I'm grounded. I might be grounded. Yeah. But if anyone's looking to get involved, help you guys out, like, where can people find you online? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, we've got our basic social media outlets. If Facebook, if you just type in EPCAMR, EPCAMR, you're gonna find us. If you look for me, for Bobby Hughes, I'm tapped out. Like, I'm at 4,999 people. I can't.
I just made it.
I don't know what happens.
I think I was number 4999. Wasn't it?
So just that blows my mind too, because I know I have a lot more friends than just who are on Facebook.
Right.
I'm like, if you have 5,000 friends, and I know every single one of them. It's like, that's how deep you can make connections with people.
Yeah.
We talked about the 6 degrees of separation. Just look at our friends list and how many shared friends we all have, whether it's Lauren or Jasmine, folks that they're all friends of ours. We all do lots of things together in the valley here. It's really amazing. But you can get on EPCAMR on social media. There on Facebook. It links to like our Instagram, but I don't have anybody like right now working on that, because I know if you put more than a few pictures up, Instagram won't take it, but we do have an Instagram, and I don't really get into the Twitter world much, but for an old guy like me who's maintaining the social media aspects, Facebook's the way for us to go right now.
You're busy out there doing work, man.
And take lots of pictures, try to educate. You'll get a really good feel and understanding for the work we do.
And you have an incredible website. I mean, there's tons. I mean, like I said, I spent hours and hours and hours on your site just going through, watching. Obviously we have the YouTube channel with some of these videos, and I mean, your website is very resourceful.
You can go down the rabbit hole if you want to get on our site. It's epcamr.org, and there's a bunch of links to the other social media sites there. There's the treatminewater.com website for our statewide conference. That all the proceedings are there from the 26 years or so that we've been doing the conference. So lots of information there. There's an AMR clearinghouse.org. That's also our coalition partners in Western PA that work in the bituminous region, which are only 2 people working out there, so they're even smaller with capacity issues that they deal with in a number of counties in the soft coal region. And then there is, let's see, what else? If you go to education.epcamr.org, that's our educational website really for teachers and for students. And there's a lot of great videos that we've done with our STEM camps on that, curriculum materials, art and education curriculum that we work on, and we're still doing work like that. And it'll give you a really good sort of exhaustive and comprehensive overview of abandoned mine drainage and abandoned mine reclamation and the partnerships and the campaign efforts that we're leading nationally, not just here locally and across the state, but nationally, to make sure Pennsylvania gets its fair share, we get our fair share, and we can start doing things about cleaning up our legacy mining impacts for the better, and really making continued improvements in many of our watersheds so we could see fish come back, aquatic life come back, recreational opportunities be made available to our communities here, and just that clean water, clean air, clean land. Greener is better than black and orange. Even though that's our colors.
Right.
Maybe
but for safety reasons.
One day I'd like to turn these colors into green and blue. But for now, we even chose this to represent. This is what we got to deal with: orange water, black banks. Let's turn them and convert them, reclaim them, and restore the watersheds that are impacted by mining.
Yeah, well, I appreciate what you're doing, and keep up the good work. And like I said, I feel like this is only the beginning. I feel like there's more episodes to come, and obviously there's a lot more work to do. But I'm looking forward to.
Well, thank you for having me.
Staying in touch. Yeah,
and I do want to just give this to you.
Yeah. Thanks for the swag.
One of our 20th annual conference T-shirts on abandoned mine reclamation that we call AMD tie-dyes, and we've probably done 25 to 30,000 of these with kids, and we do backpacks and all kinds of things. But you're looking at, if you wear this shirt, you will be able to say that you are helping to remove iron from the Solomons Creek boreholes.
There we go. I was going to say that this looks a little bit like Solomons Creek, right?
It's the iron oxide that we do recover, and we actually sell pigment, like dried pigment, on our online store for artists and for teachers and students and folks like Suhan and other artists here locally that use it and work with it. But I wanted to give you a shirt as a token of my appreciation for having me on. So,
awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Bobby Hughes on the Stacks in the Sweat Tent studio. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks.
If you want to see more On the Stacks content, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/onthestackspodcast or search the hashtag OnTheStacks on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.